I want to deal with an important matter, and this matter is not important because of its scope or because of its implication that goes back to possibly the beginning of humanity, that is the human race, as well as its continuous usage and practice in contemporary society or current society. That's the Adventist dilemma. Randy is a popular Adventist who was on 3ABN, and because of his popularity in terms of that station, he was seen as a critical part of the Adventism circle and an image of what the Adventism not was all about, but its promulgation of its message. Now, a number of persons do not seem to understand that human beings are just that, human beings, and therefore one does not know of an individual's motive, message, or even personal challenges and demons that he or she is actually facing. But I'm not saying Randy is actually facing any personal demons, but all humans have the scope to deal with issues that enters his personal space, his or her personal space, and how he or she deal with those personal issues that affect him or her daily, and decision that you have to make. Now, one may not necessarily believe in the Bible, and that I understand, and I will actually use it, the non-Bible version of what I'm going to say as well. So let me take the biblical version of this. Denial and betrayal is not something that happens yesterday. The issue of denial, let's look at the New Testament version of denial. Paul was denied and betrayed by many of the people that he actually worked with. There are many instances of denial and betrayal that occurred in New Testament, but there's one fundamental one that I want to deal with, and because it deals with the Christ of Nazareth, Jesus. Jesus knew a group of men very well, and I'm not going to call them his disciples. I'm saying those men were his friends, and he would hang out with those men. He would actually teach those men principles and issues. He will actually have time to show those men deeper to him than other person would have had the experience and the opportunity to, because there were his buddies, they were friends, and therefore they knew quite a lot about him and would have known the extent of his message, the rationale of his message, the potency of his message, and would have known not only that, but would also know most of the intricate runnings and personal beliefs of Jesus the Christ of Nazareth. So when he was betrayed by Peter, it must meant a whole lot to him. But he was also betrayed by the Jews, and of course that would also mean something to him as well. But I think the betrayal of Peter must have shook the core of Jesus. The betrayal that he got with I don't want to call any particular names, but I think Peter's betrayal would be quite a lot. What he experienced, knowing fully well that this man was my friend, this one was my bosom friend, and he denied me. It must have hurt him deeply. And I want to look outside of that. We have been betrayed and by persons every day in our lives. And there are many instances of that happening. I mean, there are some popular ones that we can actually look at. I think Monica Lewinsky must have betrayed Bill Clinton or Clinton, depends on how it's pronounced by you, and that I understand. There are many other cases of betrayal. We can look one in Jamaica where PJ Patterson really betrayed Michael Manley and by extension the wider People's National Party body. And of course, he said that he will return and did return and serve for about 19 years. But the betrayal must have hurt Michael. Bruce Golding betrayal of Edward Siaka must have hurt him as well. And there are many other cases of betrayal that has happened. And those cases of betrayal hurt deeply because they are on the inside. And because they're on the inside, when they are shown or displayed to the wider populace, the wider public, persons sometimes go into a state of panic and therefore decide not to support a particular individual who has been betrayed or persons who have been betrayed because of the scenario. All right. So that we need to actually look at carefully and keenly because it means a whole lot to us as a people to understand how do we deal with those particular scenarios. So I am saying to you the issue of betrayal is extensive. Not only it hurts the individual, but it retards persons from getting to know the individual or want to participate in whatever the individual stated about the person or group that he betrayed. So what is happening with Ryan Day now is going to hurt the Seventh Day Adventist movement because it will be a betrayal of the Seventh Day Adventist movement. And wherever the discourse wants to go, whether you want to accept his perspective on the discourse or reject his perspective on the discourse, it is in its essence betrayal. That betrayal is going to hurt the movement because some persons are going to say, see it, I don't want to be a part of the movement, or don't want to be a part of the group or the church or the body. So that in itself is going to actually hurt. So I want to actually play for you a clip of somebody looking at a recent case with Ryan Day saying Adventism in its essence, its core, is not really a biblical thing, and therefore he wants to move away from that. Having spent, based on what I have listened to, about 14 years in the movement and being a preacher, extensively looking at it, delving into the Bible, looking at its exegesis, looking at it, the context, looking at the messages, looking at LNGY, looking at a number of things. And I am saying, will this betrayal create a movement that will now support Sunday worship, or will support Roman Catholicism, or will do any other such thing? What is going to go on with this? I'm not sure. But what we do know is that it has to affect the movement. And by affecting the movement, I'm saying the Seventh Day movement is the betrayed in this discussion, and it has to hurt the Seventh Day movement. So I want to play what was said by Ryan Day, what was analyzed, and I want you also to go and look at this gentleman's channel, see what he has to say, subscribe and see if you can understand more what is actually going on. And I'm going to also put this channel, particularly this clip, into my description for you to go and see extensively what Ryan Day had to say. But let's begin the discussion and understand this is relating to betrayal and how it is the Seventh Day movement that is betrayed and not only a religion.
Day. But before we do that, friends, I would encourage you to subscribe. Please subscribe to this channel. And also, if you are new here, please do well to subscribe. And also, if you are new here, please do well to share this video. And also, to this channel, please click or press on the subscribe button right down there and join this particular channel so that you don't miss any of the videos I publish. Now, let's get into it. It was established yesterday in the video that I showed you that Ryan Day left the church. He left the church because he did not believe in some of the doctrines of the church, the SDA church. But friends, apart from that, Ryan Day, I think, was influenced by ex-Adventist who is called Alan Davis. Friends, that is my personal observation, and this is why.
I was watching. I scrolled through Facebook. This is where it started. I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw a friend of mine who was sharing the content of another person I knew, and they were sharing it kind of in a critical way. I'll just say that. Well, the person's content that they were sharing was a friend of mine, a pastor friend of mine. I don't think he would mind that I use his name. And if I'm going to use his name just because he's a friend of mine and I respect him a lot. And I know some of you are probably going to judge me for even sharing this connection, but I don't care because I have nothing to hide and I am who I am. One of my teachers who made the greatest impact on me while I was at AFCO was the vice president at that time, Alan Davis. And of course, long story short, Alan Davis eventually got to the point where he was no longer in the church for various reasons. And you can go to his YouTube channel, just look up Alan Davis theology. Alan Davis, he also has a YouTube channel on health that he's done. You can look those up. Just type in Dr. Alan Davis. You'll find his YouTube channels. You can find his videos where he gives his testimony on what happened to him in the Adventist church. I'm not going to go into all that, but I will say the person was sharing Dr. Davis's content, and I hadn't seen him in years, and I knew he wasn't in the church anymore, but there was, it was interest there, and I thought, I wonder what's going on with this guy. So I watched one of his videos. Now understand, some of you right now are automatically going, "That's the mistake you made, Ryan." The enemy opened an opportunity and you went through that door. You entertained that apostasy, and that's why you're in the situation you're in. But I'll tell you, actually, ultimately, what the quote from Ellen White that appears 2 or 3 times in her writings is actually what ultimately convinced me to start digging and looking deeper into Ellen White, into some of these doctrinal teachings that I was kind of struggling with.
All right, so that was Ryan Day, and he said he was not influenced by external factors, but I don't believe that. He was watching the videos of Alan Davis, and he probably might have been influenced by one of his videos. Now, Alan Davis has released a video defending Ryan Day and challenging. Let me show you that video right now. And Alan Davis
Shape your ideas with hundreds of shape libraries, from technical systems.
Had connection between both of them. All right, let's work this, friends.
Hey friends, Dr. Alan Davis here. Here's a subject I wanted to avoid, especially as I'm taking the channel and moving forward with the whole intent of giving primal, practical Christian theology. However, some recent events have prompted me to do this video today, and I needed to be timely about it just because of the timeliness of what happened yesterday. Many of you might have watched Pastor Ryan Day's video where he discussed his reasons for leaving Three Angels Broadcasting Network, 3ABN, and his reasons for questioning and even rejecting certain teachings of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, I am his friend, I applaud him for his courage and his willingness to stand up for the right. I have known Ryan for over 12 years, and I have found him to be honest, sincere, and a man who loves God and understands correctly salvation.
No, and I know you're actually watching what is actually unfolding in your eyes. And it's clear to me that, and to understand what is going on in terms of what I said, it's clear to me. It's clear to me that Randy was influenced by the doc here because he was his teacher, possibly at seminary or university or school, and therefore play a critical part on his mindset, his thinking, his perspective, his cosmology to life. And therefore, when his teacher would have left the church, that is the Adventist church, he would be more likely to be thinking and begin a quest of himself to understand what is really going on. Why would his teacher have left the church? And what were some of the reasons behind that? And that would have prompted something to him to begin to investigate. And by investigating, and if he has a certain level of respect for the acumen of his teacher, the depth of his teacher, the knowledge of his teacher, he would be likely also to leave the Adventist faith, because it is simply out of mere respect will actually come support. And we need to understand clearly, and it's clear here, that there is a respect that Ryan has for his teacher that all of us would have for our teacher, particularly a teacher who at the university level, who makes a significant impact on your mental space, your mental capacity, your cognitive ability to think through things. And some of the values that teacher has possibly are going to be passed on to you directly and indirectly. And therefore, the teacher would respect you when you begin to support or promulgate his thoughts or ideas, which is clearly what is actually happening here. A number of persons will not see. So, Rand, as I said to you before, is a clear indication that he has betrayed the Adventist church phenomena, concept, philosophy of Christian education, of Christian life, of Christian thinking, of Christian ideology. And therefore, it is going to be impacting on the church and the faith, but not really the principles of the church and the faith. And as such, many persons would have wanted to come into the Seventh-day Adventist church are not going to do so. Many persons who are in the Seventh-day Adventist church are going to question what is happening here. And just like how Randy actually was able to follow the pathway of his teacher, those persons who Randy influenced are also going to follow his pathway. And therefore, I'm expecting to see a number of persons leaving the church as a result of Randy leaving the church. You want to add his title to it, Pastor Randy leaving the church, and therefore it is going to have some trickle-down effect on movement out of the church. It may not be an exodus, which is a mass movement. It may not be that, but clearly it's going to have some impact and some trickling down effect. And a number of persons are gradually going to be moving out of the Seventh-day Adventist philosophy or religious belief. But what we need to understand clearly is that the Seventh-day Adventist faith has been betrayed by Randy. The latest betrayal is by Randy, and there are a number of persons who have betrayed it before. And the gentleman that's on your screen is also one of them. But Randy's latest movement out of the church is going to be not the last betrayal of the faith, but it's going to spiral other betrayals. We need to understand clearly the Seventh-day Adventist faith is substantially predicated on the Bible, yes, but more so on the writings and teachings and philosophies of Ellen G. White. And Ellen G. White would have been in life would have been socialized during the time of slavery, and therefore a part of her concept and belief and ideology and worldview would have been shaped by that period in slavery. And with slavery being abolished, things haven't changed. I am expecting a lot of things to be changing in the Seventh day faith, because some of the things that she promulgated or thought or believed are not going to stand up to the current scrutiny of what is happening, particularly as we unfold in life and new information emerge and information revolution occurs, and AI is also blossoming with what is happening and actually putting more information out there to people, dissecting things, and therefore we're going to be seeing far more information revolution. And with that information revolution, some of it may go to the heart of the principle of Ellen G. White, and some of them will actually remove the essence and the potency of Ellen G. White because of the new information which occur. And some Seventh-day Adventists would not be able to deal with the emergence of new knowledge. Because what we need to understand clearly, what exactly is the truth? Is it an absolute truth that Ellen G. White was saying was the relative truth? Time will actually deal with that. We're not sure about that, but what we do know is that with whatever occurred during Ellen G. White time on her writings, if they were not the absolute truth, it will be triggering what is actually happening here today, which is the latest Randy leaving the church, because her writings could be questioned, are questioned, and we are now finding out that they may not be the truth based on the absolute writings within the Bible. And therefore, it's actually going to be creating some challenge for people as they begin to look at the exegesis of what is actually going on, and then begin to say, listen, these are not truth, these are not biblical teachings, but more a perspective of an individual that we laud as a prophetess. And therefore, more things are going to occur as we continue to look at this. So the Seventh-day Adventist Church is in a dilemma. What does it do? Are there new issues emerging that is supporting that what Ellen G. White say in its entirety are not truth, but there are truth within it, and therefore we need to be moving away from the Ellen G. White's writings into a more truth revelation writing as we seek to modernize, change some of the things that she actually wrote, because we know, recognize some of the things that she actually wrote maybe are not truthful within the context of the Bible. So therefore, the Seventh-day Church, as I said before, is in a dilemma that it has to look at and address. What do you have to say? Let's actually begin this discussion, because something that we have to look at, because what happens in 18 something with somewhat of a century having passed, with new information, new knowledge, new experiences, is not going to be necessarily the same. And we need to sort of understand that. It is something complex for me to actually be putting out there, putting forward, putting in the atmosphere, putting for you to think about. What I'm saying to you, we have to look at things, and more knowledge comes, and the more we begin to question things, the more we have to say to ourselves, did the person get it right the first time? Or were there some truth to what the person said, and the truth was not absolute? And therefore, because it was not absolute truth, we need to recognize that and make modifications. But making those modifications may go to the heart of the principle of the Seventh-day faith. And maybe that is where the dilemma is really at the moment. What are your views? What do you have to say? Like, share, and subscribe to my channel as I continue to provide with trusted information for you to use to make a decision. We have got to begin to look at this matter, because the church is in a dilemma. We have to address it and address it now.